alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Zakariya Ahmed Hassan and you're watching the youth show here live at SomaliCable.tv. This show is here to help, inspire and empower young Somali people to greatness. You can call in with your success stories, we would love to hear. Have you recently passed your GCSEs with flying colours? Have you had any university offers? We would love to hear that here at the youth show at SomaliCable.tv. Likewise, are you going through any problems that you'd like to talk about? Together, me and you and the rest of the Somali nation, we can have solutions to overcome these problems. magacayga waxaa la dhahaa Zakariya Ahmed Hassan CAWKE la socda barnaamijka sabti walba 6 UK time. Wassalaamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كلانتي وعنا وناكسن وبرنامج كاني دانيرada oo saacadana kala socoteen telefishinka caalamiga Somali Cable. Caawa barnaamij kan waxa martino ah Yasmiin Umar oo kamid ah danyarada Soomaaliyeed oo wax ku baratay wadankan Ingiriiska oo ka qalin jabiyay jaamacadda Queen Mary oo isla markiina la shaqeysa danyaro Soomaaliyeed oo iskuul ka dhigtaan wadankan Ingiriiska. Markii hore aan ku soo dhaweeyo Yasmiin Umar oo studio hada ila fadhiso. Yasmiin ku soo dhawo barnaamijka.
Well, mahadsantahay Zakariya, thanks for having me.
No problem. You know, Yasmiin, to start off, if you tell us a bit about yourself and how it was, you know, for you growing up in the UK.
Well, my name is Yasmiin Omar, as you said. I was born in Ealing, in West London, where I still live today. I went through pretty much every stage of education here, starting from primary school, high school. I went on to sixth form and then university.
Okay, you know, just a random question. What was your favorite subject in school?
I feel inclined to say science. I did always really like history, but I think I'll go with science.
Okay, you know, you said that you went through every stage of, you know, the education process from primary school to high school to sixth form. You know, from high school to sixth form, what subjects did you pick?
I was quite unsure about which A-levels I wanted to do. I do remember finding it quite sad that I had to go from doing about 10 different subjects to 4. I was quite upset about that because I didn't, like, I was always the kind of student who liked a lot of things at school at the same time. So I eventually went with biology and chemistry, which is very typical for a Somali kid. And history and sociology because I didn't know what I wanted to do after university, so I thought it'd be quite smart to do half science and half humanities.
Actually, you know, that's actually a great choice because from, you know, having science, biology and chemistry, you can choose to go into the scientific field.
Yeah.
And, you know, humanities, it leads to, you know, you can go to other careers as well. You know, what was your experience like? Because when you finished sixth form, you know, you said you went from 10 subjects in GCSEs to 4 subjects in sixth form and then going down to 1 subject in university.
Which was even harder for me because I was thinking really, like the most you can do is like joint honours, which is 2 subjects at the same time, and I was just honestly distraught at the thought of having to specialise in one thing, especially because I feel like I've never been the kind of student who knows what it is that they want to pursue. So when I was deciding, I used to always base my decisions based on what it was that I didn't want to do. So I'd always eliminate what I didn't like, and then I'd see what I was left with.
Okay. You know, you said that you didn't, it went down to 1 subject. What was that 1 subject you eventually chose?
I chose biology because, okay, so I feel like maybe I should explain my A-levels first. Okay, so I did biology, chemistry, history and sociology, as I said. I didn't like chemistry at all. I found it was very different to GCSE. I think I stopped understanding after like the first week. I just was not with it anymore. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. So when I got to year 13, I did biology, history and sociology, which I pursued until the very end. And when I was applying for university, I remember thinking, I don't know what my long-term career goal is. Perhaps it's just better for me to have a science background because it is what I like. I didn't see myself doing a sociology degree because I didn't see myself wanting to be a sociologist in the future. I didn't want to pursue a history degree because, I mean, this might sound quite controversial, but I felt like if I really wanted to study history, like I could just go to a library and read some, you know, books about things that have happened before, which I know is very controversial and I probably should have said that. But in the end, I thought, you know what, I like science the most. I'm going to go with science.
You know, actually, a stereotype or ummadda Soomaaliyeed, you know, gabdhaha markay soo koriyaan oo mariyaan, you know, high school, primary school, waxa la ku dhahaa, you know, maybe jaamacad maxaa ka doonaysaan because marka jaamacad dhameysaan mise inta jaamacad ku dhex jirtaan, you know, waa la ku guursanaa anyway, so there's no reason, you know, for you to go to jaamacad because waa ninka responsibilitygiisa inuu ku shaqeeya. So, you know, do you think you agree with that? You know, there's no point of necessarily going to university or getting a degree, because at the end of the day, normally stereotypically Somalis agree that it's men's choice to work.
Yeah, I feel like that stereotype is not as common as people think, but there are still a lot of Somali people who I think, I mean, before the Civil War, how did your mum go to university?
Yep.
She did, my mum did too. A lot of people, it was very normal for both genders to go to university. When they moved to places like Europe, there was a bit of a shift in mindset, but it wasn't necessarily, you know, don't let girls go to university. It was more, I feel like where their stereotype lies more, or their prejudice rather, is in not letting girls study in other cities. So, you know, trying to keep them in local universities, regardless of things like league tables. So when I was applying for university, I remember when I got into Queen Mary, I got a scholarship, and this lady called up my mum and she was like, oh, Queen Mary, that's in East London, you know, she lives in West London. بس كما صارت هاد جامعة كيالو, you know, Eden Broadway at the University of West London, which is many degrees worse than Queen Mary was better. Queen Mary is a Russell Group University. And, you know, it's just that kind of mindset where if I was to say perhaps, I mean, I don't know what my mum would have said if I wanted to move to another city, but I do personally know a lot of girls who have brothers who went to university in other cities, but they weren't allowed and had to stay in London just because, you know, when you get married, basically.
برنامج كان عطاس رأيينا إيه فكرتين ولا سودا وينا نقلصوا حرير نمبر كان كعرضتان TV إن شاء الله. Either, you know, you can cooperate with us on this show, you can speak to Yasmiin or myself and pose any questions or statements you would like to. Yasmiin, you know, applying from sixth form to university, it's actually quite, you know, mind-boggling, you know, from GCSE to sixth form I thought it was, you know, quite terrible, but I don't know how it's going to be like from sixth form to university. So do you think there's any advice or to سالسيني كنت دانيرة الصومالية from ملكي كأذان college كلا جامعة؟
Okay. I would say it's quite a daunting experience, but it is one that hundreds of thousands of people do every single academic year, and there's no reason why anyone else, you know, in future years won't be able to do the same. It's nerve-wracking, it's quite scary, it's also a big jump, and it is quite hard because a lot of people I do know, even if they do feel like they know what they want to study, have doubts, like, is this really what I want to do, you know, almost like commitment issues, which I definitely had, and I feel like that comes with being a young person. But what I would definitely say is, you know, don't fear the process. Think carefully about what you want to apply for. Make sure you consider options. If you can, speak to other people that you might know that have gone to university. Speak amongst your friends. You know, or even look within yourself to try to discover, you know, what it is that what you like, where you might want to go, what your future careers are, or even do it how I did and eliminate what you know you definitely won't like, so that it helps you shorten the list of things you could possibly apply for.
Yasmiin, you said that, you know, when you're applying to university, you can like limit the stuff. You can say what you like and go through for a career in that. Or sometimes, you know, if you're not unsure and you want to go to university, you can, you know, say, okay, I don't like this subject, so let's rule out that subject. I'm definitely not doing that subject. But, you know, nowadays, you know, the world's evolving more and more. You know, technology is evolving more and more. And sometimes people say that, you know, Jama'at is not necessary, so it's not necessary to go to university. Do you agree with, you know, that it's actually very necessary to go to university? Or do you think, you know, there's other ways out there that you can make a career of yourself?
I definitely agree that there are other ways. University, once upon a time, was something that was kind of mandatory. No, actually wasn't. First it wasn't. You know, a lot of people could get managerial jobs without even having degrees, or with like a lower qualification in their degree. If you ask somebody from 20, 25 years ago who perhaps might work as like a senior journalist now, they might tell you, I didn't even do a journalism degree. Whereas now, if you wanted to apply to be a journalist, it's rare to hear of somebody who won't be let in without a journalism degree, and even more so than that, someone who doesn't have a 2-1 or above, as they like to use as a prerequisite for almost every graduate job. But the thing about, could you remind me what your question is? So,
you know, is it necessary to go to university?
Yeah. So I agree, the world is evolving, it's changing a lot, but and there are many other things that are now available to people, but at the same time, society in Britain at least is still structured in a way where degrees are still required for a lot of graduate jobs. So whilst there are lots of other things and the world is evolving, as you said, and there are lots of courses you could do on the, the side, things like coding and stuff are becoming quite popular. Still, if you want to get a job, it is often still a requirement to have a degree. So I'd say we're probably not fully there yet. If there is somebody who doesn't want to go to university, I'd say don't force yourself. It's really not worth it to go somewhere and pay so much if it's not something that you're interested in. I do feel like it's a bigger leap to take than like not going to university is a bolder move to make, because society is structured in such a way where it just heavily favours people who are degree holders.
You said that, society favours it, and, it's actually a Somalian stereotype, wiilkayga mise gabadheeda jaamacad aadan, waan ku khasaaroobaa, imase lacagan ka bixinaya tutorka, imase lacagan ka bixinaya macalinka, so, intaasoo lacag baan ku kharash gareeya, aan haddana waxay rabaan inay ku dahaan jaamacadii ma aadiyaan, markay yaraayaan maxay sheegi waayaan, otherwise macalinka lacagta ma siin lahayeen, gurigii iska joogi lahayeen. So, the stereotype of, waalidiinta Soomaaliyeed inay dahaan cunugayga, jaamacadu aado ama halkaas uu kasoo barto, sometimes, we need to move past certain stereotypes and certain cultures. We need to bring about our own cultures as the Somaliyeed, so the next, set of youth, can follow us. Yasmiin, when you went to, let's rewind back to the first day of university, when you started Jama'at, how was your first day of university?
Okay, so one thing I didn't do when I was in doing my A-levels is go to visit universities for open days. I just felt like I didn't need to, because I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So I thought, you know what, I'm not even going to give myself that many options. I'm just going to pick a university. I'm going to see who gives me an offer. If I get an offer, then I'm just going to turn up on the first day. And that is exactly what I did. My first ever time at Queen Mary was my enrollment day, when it was essentially much too late to, change my mind about where I wanted to go. So I turned up, I took the Central Line from Ealing Broadway, I went to Myland, I walked out Myland Station, turned to my left, and there was Queen Mary just down the road. And I thought, okay, so this is where I'm going to be in East London. Okay, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know anyone from the university, I didn't know anyone from the course. I just knew nothing about Queen Mary. I didn't even know anybody in East London. I went to my first introductory lecture, and I remember thinking, okay, so this is where I'm going to be for the next 3 years. And I do remember soon into university, I met who you guys now know as, Fatima Ahmed, who was also doing the same course as me. Fatima Ahmed is probably best known for being a YouTuber, and we just so happened to meet at university because we were doing the same course. And I just remember being quite nervous on my first day, thinking, I had a lot of questions about myself. Is this where I want to be? And I do remember having a great sense of missing my friends from my old school, and just, having a familiar environment. I do like familiar things, which is very common as a person.
You started, Queen Mary, and, you felt very nervous.
Yeah.
But later on, you found out, in universities they have a lot of societies, so you can have the French society, the Italian society, and you eventually founded Somali society. Tell us a bit about how you founded it and how it became what it is today.
Okay, so as I was saying, I made a friend called Fatima, and I also made a friend called Amina, who noticed very early on in university that there was no Somali society, even though most other ethnic groups had a society. And she said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we set up a Somali society? And I said, yeah, I think it would be. So when we finished our second year in 2014, over the summer, I started the process of setting up the Somali society. And so in September 2014, it was officially launched. And on our first day at Freshers Fair, I think just over 100 people signed up, 120
Wow.
people. And they nominated me as the president for it.
So you were the first female president of Somalian
yeah,
societies.
Just like I'm the first female on your show.
See, first female on my show, first Somalian president, actually of a Somali society. Moving away from the topic of education, there's a thing, you set up, you and a couple of other Somali young ladies, called Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
So, tell us a bit about Sci-Fi and what it actually stands for.
Sci-Fi stands for Somali Youth for Integrity. It's a charity that was set up to join all UK Somali societies and raise money for a common cause. there's just the February just gone, there was a February fundraising, an event called, well, the month itself was named February fundraising, where all society, UK Somali society students work together to raise money, and we just had, was it the finale last Friday. Essentially its aim is to just unite people for a common cause, mainly students in the UK, and raise money for vulnerable Somali groups, be it in the UK or Somalia, but so far we've only raised the money for people in Somalia. We raised in September for Dr. Habib's Mental Institute in Mogadishu, and now in the February just gone, we raised just under £3,000 for Las Anod General Hospital.
Wow. You know, may Allah reward them all for the, you know, generous charity that they perform for Las Anod General Hospital. خدكم كهرة هذا فرصتين إن شاء الله. Hello, السلام عليكم. Unfortunately,
I think they hung up.
Yeah, unfortunately that line got cut off. You know, you said Sci-Fi stands for Somali Youth for Integrity. You know, how did you come up with that name? As in, you know, when you hear sci-fi, normally you think of movie, you know, the genre movies, or, you know, how did it come about, especially the spelling?
Okay, so Sci-Fi itself, obviously the name was picked before the abbreviation. It was actually a friend of mine who picked the name. I am not going to name her though. And she thought of the name, and the reason why she picked Somali Youth for Integrity, well, she picked Somali Youth because it's done by Somali people who are young, and the reason why she specifically picked integrity is because of its two meanings. I've forgotten now what the two specific meanings of integrity is, but that was her sincere reasoning for picking Somali Youth for Integrity. And then Sci-Fi obviously was just the inevitable abbreviation, but it's not sci-fi like scientific, like science fiction. It's not SCIFI, it's SYFI, Somali Youth for Integrity, but it does sound like sci-fi, and it's got quite a ring to it and is easy to remember, thankfully.
You know, that's a sign of a good name, something that you always remember.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me personally, I don't think I'll ever forget Sci-Fi, be it the name or the spelling. You know, you said Sci-Fi, it raised money for a hospital, and, you know, you came up with the Las Anod General Hospital, I believe. You know, how was it, you know, because we want the Somalian youth, you know, to become leaders of today and tomorrow. You know, there's a famous Somali saying is, so the, you know, the future of today and tomorrow. So setting up the events of Sci-Fi and bringing all those people together from different Somali societies, I mean, how did you find it, and how was it, how were you able to bring all the Somali societies together? Okay.
So I have to say that Las Anod General Hospital, the idea for sending the charity money to them was actually pitched by Loughborough Somali Society, where a couple of their students from their Somali society picked Las Anod General Hospital specifically because they've not received any funding since 2008, I believe, and so that's why they were picked. In terms of getting the UK Somali societies to work together, that was genuinely a team effort, in the sense that, you know, you can't force anybody to work with you if they don't want to. Every uni already had their Somali society, so what happened was, you know, a certain members from their committee would work together, or they'd have like a representative from each of their subcommittees to mediate, well, to kind of, you know, talk to us, communicate with us and tell us what's been happening with them. And there was one particular girl called Hannah, who I'm sure you saw on Friday, who was essentially coordinating. She was like mediating between both Sci-Fi and between all the Somali societies, and so I just feel like it was a really big effort from a lot of people across the UK, and it worked a lot better than, I mean, it worked how I had hoped, and how the rest of Sci-Fi had hoped, but at the same time was
خذكم كهرة فرصتين إن شاء الله. هلو السلام عليكم.
السلام عليكم.
ما قاعد يمشك سهل ست. هلا ما قاعد يمشك سهل ست. Yep, unfortunately that line got cut off as well. خد كان unfortunately نكاقاي. إن شاء الله برنامج كان وتوصل رأي جيني فكرة دين ولا سودوينا نقل حريت نمبر كتلفزيون كعرضان إن شاء الله. You know, call in with your questions either to Yasmiin or myself, or, you know, you can pose a question or you can pose a statement. It will be, you know, heavily appreciated. Yasmiin, you know, you work alongside a lot of, you know, Somali youth, be it in high schools, or, you know, you work for Ealing Council. So, you know, if you can say one main problem that is for the Somali youth that they all face, and, you know, maybe a solution for it.
Okay, so the main issue that Somalis kind of faces a lot of the Somali population within schools is having parents who are not familiar with the school system and the school environment. I mean, I've met Somali parents who think that if their because their child is progressing through every school year, must be doing really well every year. So they'll say, MashaAllah, and then because in Somalia, how the school system was set up was, if you didn't pass the end of year exams, you'd fail and have to redo the year. Whereas here, you progress, you're in a school year based on age alone and not particularly what qualifications you get, particularly pre-GCSE. So they'd get to year 11, their child won't be doing that well, then won't do well, will fail a lot of their GCSEs, and then the school will turn around and be like, oh, you know what, actually, you can't go on to the sixth form or you can't go into the college because you didn't do well. And then that's the first time the parents will realise, hang on, and by the way, it is often mothers, because a lot of Somali families, a lot of Somali kids are raised by single parents, their mother, and it will be the first time their parents will realise, actually, my child hasn't been doing well, and often it is very, very, well, much too late.
So what do you think that can be done for, you know, the Somali youth? Because essentially, you know, the parents, they've already gone through the school process. Now they're parents, so they're at home looking after the other kids. Probably the dad's working somewhere, coming back late. Coming back late. Yeah. You know, probably lying down, wants a shirt to be brought to him, a food. So, you know, what can be done for the Somali youth to stop it from being too late, essentially?
I think if you are a young, educated person in this country who has a good grasp of the English language and the Somali language, then you could probably volunteer in your local school or in some sort of capacity with your local council to help mediate between Somali parents, their students and the schools, because a lot of the time it's just miscommunication. It's rare to find a Somali parent who doesn't want their child to succeed, who doesn't want their child to do well. You know, Somali parents typically want the best for their child and just don't know what the best is because they've come to this country.
خدكو كورة يا فرصتي ما شاء الله. هلا السلام عليكم. هلا السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
ما قاعد يمشك سادسة.
عبد الله حكيتوا على
Hayes, Abdullahi, كسودو برنامجك. What did you want to say today?
I just want to talk about the sci-fi integrity.
Okay. What did you want to say about sci-fi? What did you want to ask about sci-fi?
When I want to talk about how the foundations will going to be future elections, the future, how the building.
Okay, that's a great question. I'll let Yasmiin answer your question. Stay on the line. Yasmiin, if you want to answer. Abdullah from Hayes.
So how is
it set up, and you know, how is it going to be like for future events, and you know, where do you see yourself in 3 years?
Basically, I want to talk about is there going to be future elections for
sci-fi?
Future events, yeah, okay.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum Abdullahi.
I want to ask about like who's going to be the first male president, or is it going to be like future elections?
I see. Okay, Assalamu alaikum Abdullahi. How sci-fi works was, because it was just set up by a group of, you know, random young people from London, it doesn't yet have elections, but if the charity was to grow, there definitely would be a lot of formal positions given to different individuals. But in terms of president and stuff, sci-fi currently isn't set up like that. But if you mean Somali societies in universities, when you get to university, how old are you now, Abdullahi?
Hello, Abdullahi?
Yeah, hello.
How old are you? I can only hear you.
16, 17.
Okay.
I'll be my mum.
Okay, so in just, you know, maybe a year or two, you might go to university. When you get to university, if you join a Somali society there, you can nominate yourself to be a president, or you can, if there is no Somali society at your university, then you can set one up and then nominate yourself to be the president. But in terms of sci-fi itself, there aren't any specific roles at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Hello?
Hello?
18.
Okay, thank you very much for calling. You know, I think Abdullah calling from Hayes, I think you got confused about Somali society, sci-fi and university Somali societies running for president.
So I just thought I'd explain.
Yeah. Both. So you said that, you know, a main problem that they face is, you know, that it's too late. So, you know, getting ahead of the problem. You know, that's because instead of being on the defense and waiting for that inevitable to happen, which is going to happen, as you said, you know, what can we do? You know, more stuff can we do? You know, because you must see a lot of schools, you must work with a lot of schools, and you know, you see a lot of parents on Parents' Evening. You know, I actually saw one of your vlogs, and it said, you know, or another number of your vlogs, and it said, you know, the mum is normally always ones that comes to Parents' Evening. You hardly ever see, you know, Somali dads coming to the Parents' Evening. So what do you think that can be done as a family, you know, to help the kid during his high school experience?
Okay. I just want to say, I feel like I give the impression that I like bash fathers a lot, but honestly, I'm not. It's just factual. Somali mothers, even a lot of the time, if the father is present, are the ones who are often, you know, wear the trousers in the family, even though Somali mothers don't really wear trousers. But anyway, what can be done is Somali parents, okay, perhaps I should speak Somali for this, they should stop pressurizing their kids. إني والدك الصومالي تفهمها واي عيالك لما نكون كران دكتور إنجنير هذا قفل بدكتور إنجنير نقطة يا you know shaqooyinka kala qaban doona shaqo tiro badan adduunkan ka jiraan. Somali parents, they a lot of the time like to inay ciyaalka compare garayaan inay dhahaan, you know, hebel hebel oo meeshaas degan waxaasay barataa isaga waxaas oo bartaa adina maxaa waxaas oo baranaynin. Laakiin not everybody likes doing the same things. Qofka inaa patient inaa la ahaatid waaye. You have to understand that everybody is just an individual and will often have individual preferences and likes and dislikes, and you shouldn't force somebody. Your support of your child shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't be based on the condition that they do what you have an interest in. It should be, you know, wholehearted, and it should be wholehearted support where you support your child in whatever they choose to pursue in the future, as long as it's, you know, well, I was going to say as long as it's reasonable, but then reasonable is variable, if you know what I mean. So like I'm contradicting myself, but a lot of the time, you know, you just have to be patient with the child. You can't threaten them and tell them, you know, I pay for this tutoring for you. If you don't do well, like, you have to take the time to understand the school that they're at and how the school system works. You know, you might, some parents, they have relatives who have children in other schools, and then they'll know something was true for that child in that school and will assume that their child's school must be the same. But a lot of schools have different rules. There are different types of comprehensive schools. Some are, you know, comprehensive, some are now academies and have more autonomy, and so the government has less of a say in the school and things like that. So you have to be, you know, have to be on good terms with your child's teachers. If your child tells you that they're embarrassed that you contact the school, ignore them, because they'll benefit from it. Is that not right?
You know, standing up for the youth of Somali youth, you know, I'm not sure them how to say, you know, call their parents and stuff. But of course, you know, it helps, you know, for the, you know, teacher to interlink with the parents and find out, you know, what's going on at home, and likewise, you know, what the student is doing at school, because, you know, the student might be sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning and be tired during the school day and sleep on the desk during school, and the parent might not know anything about it. So definitely it is good, you know, to cooperate with the teachers, and, you know, the parents cooperate with each other so that they know what the student is actually doing.
Definitely.
Yasmiin, actually brought me back. You know when you said let me speak Somali for this bit, you know, I was watching one of your vlogs and it was a funny story of you said, you know, speaking Somali. You know, if you want to share that with these guys.
Okay, so basically I have a YouTube channel that I recently set up, but there aren't that many videos on it yet. But there is one in particular that went semi-viral. It went viral by my standards, and it's a vlog of me speaking Somali at an event for the first time. I'd never publicly spoken Somali. This was back in October. And this job that I started with the Somali Advice and Development Centre at Ealing Council meant that I had to work with a lot of Somali adults. And what happened was I was filling a form for a man one day, and it asked his marital status. You know, it said, are you single, married or divorced, you know, civil partnership, whatever. And so I said to him, "Adar mulugu qaba," and he looked at me like, well, what? You know, and then he started laughing at me, and he said, "Adar nimanka wax ma qaban, mala qabayaka wax qaban," and I was just really embarrassed. And basically, it's been at this job that I've learned how to speak. I mean, I always knew Somali pretty well. I'm just, you know, being humble today and not speaking it. But I did know Somali well, but I just remember being really embarrassed, and I feel like my vlog went viral because I mentioned that story.
You know, other, you know, malak qaba, you know, other nimanka malak qaba, you know, ayaga wax qaban. So that's something, you know.
I didn't get the memo because nearly most of the Somalis that I know are female, and so I'd hear, you know, mulugu qawa, and I just thought it applies to everybody. I didn't realize that you say different things for different genders, but you live and you learn, you know. Yeah.
So you know, on the topic of speaking Somali, you you know, it's very hard for especially teenagers over here to learn how to speak Somali, especially when they're in a country, you know, that mostly everyone speaks English. Yeah. So what do you think that can be done for them to, you know, learn how to speak Somali, or, you know, better interact with the Somalians elders, you know, to close the gap? Because sometimes you find, you know, your mum or your dad might not speak the perfect English, but you might speak perfect English but don't know how to speak a word of Somali, so that way you don't understand each other. So, you know, is there a way of getting the language barrier to kind of go away and instead, you know, trying to understand each other?
I get asked that on a regular basis, and I also do wonder it on a regular basis. I mean, me in particular, I know that I have pretty good Somali for someone who was born and raised in London, but I don't know why that's the case, especially because I have 2 siblings, and if they speak Somali, like, you will just, you know, you'll want to tell them, stop, you know, don't do it. But I do wonder that all the time, and I genuinely don't know what it is that can be done about it. I feel like as a Somali ethnic group, or as in terms of our culture, we don't really have a culture where parents spend all time with their children and sit down for things like dinner and stuff, which might be common in other cultures where kids learn their languages. I really don't understand why Somalis in particular don't speak Somali well when they were raised here. I feel like perhaps if the communication between parents, you know, xiriirka between parents and the child was improved, maybe that's the case. But I don't know what it is, honestly, I don't know.
Okay, خذك كلا هذا قلنا إن شاء الله. Hello, السلام عليكم. Hello, السلام عليكم. Unfortunately, I don't think the connection is that good today. برنامج كان توس رأي جيني فكرة ديني إن شاء الله ولا سودوينا نقول حرير نمبر كاني كارثان تلفزيون كا you know, you'd be more than welcome to call in إن شاء الله. خذك كهرة هذا قلنا إن شاء الله. Hello, السلام عليكم.
Hello.
Hello, تلفزيون كا إن شاء الله اسكت قابي تلفون كنا كل حرير connection كانوا في عنان لها إن شاء الله.
Hello.
Hello, السلام عليكم.
Hello.
Hello.
السلام.
ما قاعد ماشك سالسة.
السلام.
Hello.
سمالي مسالم.
ها ما قاعد
ما يسمالي مسالم.
كسروا برنامج كمحل تعاون أنا كلا قيب قادتد.
مجال كسر موضوع العين، لكن الجواب الصومالي يقال ليس معناها يعني يسوي فيديو. لو الصومالي لو كتبت الناس يقولون بكل قصيدة إذا سلاجة عن ذلك ولا بعد.
ما قصوا علين كرتها إن شاء الله. في عمل كوم أخلي كرن. ما حد هذا؟
جواب بالصومالي الصومالي هاي غير الصومالي بكل قصيدة إنجليزي الصومالي الصومالي والإنجليزي. أنا كنت أقول الصومالي بالجرس.
الصومالي بجرنسا ياسمين علي answer that question. He said no هذا هاي ولي قاعد ما كنا قلت الصومالي.
أنا ولي جاي الصومالي متجن لبعتي لبصنا هذا الجرا ولي جاي لما جاي الصومالي وعارف جيدي سنت كهرنا عادي هاد لكن ملكينين. He can still hear it from the TV, right? Okay, وكسر علنا أنا واحد هاي لبعتني لبصنا جرا لكن ولي جاي متجن صوماليا أنا ولي جاي UK قاعد جوجي Somalia أنا واحد برتاني وماشان جوجي لكن ولي جاي ما أذن Somalia.
So you know قف أو ولي جاي Somalia أذن بكو هذي كرا you know Somali. So you know excuse me بجرا ما معجزة excuse me بجرا you know إنها you know لقد هو ولي جاي هالكم قصة كرا أف Somali مكو هاللي كري. Of course أف Somali سيد كوا Somalia جوجان مكو هاللي كرتد لكن you know كوا هالكن جوجان وسكودي كران إن كوا هذلان نوالدين توحى لك الربع أنت كده هاد أف Somali مكو هاللي كرتد هالكاس كجوجس كأموس مش هذا سكفدي إن برتد أنا كده هذا you know وحاس بقلة ده سيدنا على رضها وحن you know أنا كده ما في عنها هني حتى حرير كلا ده حيو والدك إيه عنق حتى نوصيف عنها. قدك كلا هدي قلنا إن شاء الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وأنا يوصل مقدس وأنا يوصل مقدس.
هذا ياسمين أقول جوابي هذا قدك إن شاء الله كل حجر.
أنا waxa ku dhahay 22 sano jira laakiin aniga weligay Soomaaliya ma tagin UK ga weligay joogo waa ku dhashay waan ku soo koray.
Hello.
ما تعرفين إن أصل الصومالية بركة الصومالية ما دام أريد الصومالي تاي.
يا مرة كفهمين كوس علي.
ما دام أريد الصومالي تاي أريد قاو الصومالي هذا بريتن أريد الجوكي لكن من جد أنا الصومالي أنا كنت عامل بلتي الصومالي أنا أدوى ولا.
Okay. You said is it one of your yeah is one.
ها وجعلان لهاي إنا الصومالي تجو هدي دسك وح فائدة لها دا أقوى كرو إنا أقبته إنا سو أركو إنا عبار سو جوجو لكن هذا ولي مسورة قلين maybe July رمضان كعيد الصوص على إنا تقعد كرت لكن ما هو بي.
أذر سيدو كلنا برنامجكم waxaa lagu talagalay waxa jira dhalinyaro oo daawadaan oo af Soomaali ku hadli karin oo af Ingiriis u fahmiyaan iyo ku oo af Soomaali ku hadli karin Ingiriis fahmin soo labadaba in la fahamsiyaa lagu talagalay insha Allah.
I can hear you in the background.
Yeah. Insha Allah.
وفي لكن waxaan rabaa in dadkiina Britain af Ingiriisiga kaliya ku hadlayeen studio kaliya la Britain.
waa tusaale waa mahadsantahay aad iyo aad adeer waa tusaale aad iyo aad u fiican you know he's yeah you can reply if you want.
So one thing I want to say is I feel like a lot of the reason why عيالك af Somali ugu hadlin is because culture dhaqan waxa qabnaa dadka lagu qoslo niyada laga dilo lagu dhaho aragta minka waxa ku hadlay qaan male you know you laugh at people if you hada ciyaalka lagu qoslo ma ku hadli doonaan Somali you know when you're learning English and you make mistakes it's rare for you to be laughed at you know you get corrected whereas when it's Somali you're a laughing stock and you're reminded for like the next 5 years until you know you make another mistake and then that's the new thing that they pick on so I feel like dadka you know niyada yaa laga dileen hal ku dhaho Somali ku hadal markay wax qaldan sheegaan lagu dhaho sax maahan saan leh ama you know saan yeel in lagu dhahay arag damiinkan ama dius bari waxa sal dhahaa dadka ka imaade qurbaha.
Yasmiin you know you finished the degree in biology.
Yeah.
Just a question out there, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years? Before you answer that question, قد كلا فرصتنا إن شاء الله. Hello, السلام عليكم. Hello, السلام عليكم.
I'm pretty sure there isn't anybody there.
Unfortunately, I think قد كاسونا كقاي. You know, as I was saying, where do you see yourself maybe in, let's say, 5 years?
Okay, so I finished my degree in biology and then I decided sitting in like a lab, for example, is definitely something I don't want to do. I need human interaction, I need people, you know, and so I have decided now that I have a great interest in policies and things, laws and stuff that affect people without necessarily being a lawyer. So I feel like I've applied now to do a master's in social policy because inshallah if I finish that master's then the plan is that I go into you know policy making and stuff like that specifically in the field of education. I have an interest in children's education and them doing well and also in empowering marginalized groups in the UK, namely the Somali community, because that's the one that I hail from and have the most interest in, the most vested interest in, but obviously would be open to helping any vulnerable person. But now my long-term aim, inshallah, is to go into social policy, make policies for education and things like that, and maybe other areas which I'm not sure of yet, and then, I don't know, just pursue a career in policy. But even still, I'm not 100% sure. I'm still quite on the fence about journalism because, as you can see, I chat for days, you know? So I might go into journalism, but I'm still quite unsure about that.
You know, a lot of Somali teenagers, they get told, you know, it's actually like, I get a lot of Facebook messages, Twitter messages, they say, they say, I always get told, you know, my parents always get told that I have this potential and, you know, I'm always getting told I have potential, but somehow, you know, I don't see where the teachers are coming from. They're saying I've got this potential. So, like, what can I do to bring out this so-called potential that people keep mentioning?
I'd say work really hard. Work so hard that you can't turn around after an exam and say, actually, there was more I could have done. Work so hard that, you know, you finish every specification that you have for every subject. Work so hard that you never settle for anything. You know, you always think, okay, could I do more? Could I do more? Learn to stretch yourself. It's really, it's a really good skill to be self-disciplined and to have a lot of self-confidence. You know, believe in yourself. Your mindset, I feel like a lot of people don't realize, is almost as important as the effort you put in. I'd say your mindset is about half and the effort you put in is the other half. If you don't have the mindset, you're never going to get anywhere because you have to believe that you are able to achieve something for you to be able to do it.
That's actually, that's
Inspirational,
probably one of the best quotes we've had from our first female guest on the show. خطك كلا قلنا إن شاء الله. Hello, السلام عليكم. Hello, السلام عليكم. التلفزيون كيسك قابي إن شاء الله. تلفون كنا كلا حري. Hello, السلام عليكم. ما قاعدي ماشي سادسة.
Yeah, I'm from Manchester.
Manchester. What did you want to add to the show today? What do you want to speak about?
I'm gonna add to the show today. I'm gonna say you first. Thanks you for show.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna add. She said to my sister, if you finish university, some people they're gonna say, if you finish university or not, when you finish in university, you're gonna marry a man, so you don't have to finish. That's what all Somali people say. But me, I'm gonna say, don't just ignore them.
Okay, that's actually really great. No,
thank you very much. Thank you. I agree with you.
Are you in college now?
No, a lot of people do think I'm in college because I look really young, but I've actually finished university. I've graduated and I work full time.
Yeah, I'm proud of you too. I'm
Thank you.
in high school. I'm year 10. I'm doing chemistry and biology.
Yeah.
Honestly, good luck with it. I hope you do very well, inshallah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
That's really nice. Okay, so guys, I'll tell you a bit of a story, yeah? The first time I went on live television was in January, and I made my friend Huda come on TV with me, and we spent an hour talking about educational achievement and, what it takes to be successful, only for right at the end to be asked, so, what would you look for in a guy? As if, everything else I said before that was void and that I wasn't someone who, anyone should be proud of because I'm not married. And so, we ended up trolling him and saying, we're looking for someone with hands, feet, nose. Huda said nose, I think. But that is one thing. I feel like Somali culture, and I do see where they're coming from, there's a great emphasis placed on getting people married all the time. And I genuinely understand why. But at the same time, I feel like, separate a person's education and also your wish for them to get married. Just because someone isn't married doesn't make their qualifications void or, doesn't make them less successful than somebody who is married. Like, I feel like it's often, romanticized, and a lot of a person's success lies in, who they marry. But, I don't feel like it should be seen that way. You shouldn't take away someone else's achievements because they're not married.
Adding to that, Yasmiin, marka qof guursado so naag gabar haday hada guursato nin ninkii gabadha unfortunately marmar wis furaan so maybe wuu furi karaa ninka wuxuu ku day karaa waan ku fure markaas haddana naagtu waxay haystaa 3 caruur jaamacadana ma aadan koos wax la ku dahay nin baa guursanaysaa soo jaamacada iska daa so haddana waxay sameynaysaa ma garanayso 3 caruur guriga u fadhiyana maybe ninka wuu ka cararay meel kale buu aadan so haddana ma garanayso waxay sameynaysaa. But on the other hand, if you find, gabar Somaliyeed or maybe wax soo dhigata jaamacad ka soo baxday, maybe oo shaqeynaysaa markaas qof bay guursataa markaas, markay qof guursatay hadees furaan, Ilaahay ha ka badbaadiyeen is furaan laakiin haday bas furaan then naagtu waxay dhihi kartaa oodhi waxay waan soo bartay shaqadeed waan bilaabay hadda shaqo waan ku noqon karaa. So ninka I'm not totally dependent upon him, I'm not reliable upon him, so حجي كم الله هاني كرو قميتي كم هاني كرو إني فورم زين وحاسي كسمية كز وحنا قف أني صابر قف أني وح صابر تا وانشقاني كرامة كان ربا. So that emphasis that you said, if you do educate yourself and you do end up working, then you don't have that blackmailing of if I divorce you then you're not going to end up anywhere in life.
Yeah, so I'd say to in particular my sisters, marriage is a great thing. It's completing half your deen, and it's something that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged. At the same time, I would strongly suggest that you work hard to build yourself up so that you can sustain yourself both emotionally and financially. Like Zakariya, the example he used, if you were to later get divorced or just find yourself needing to rely on yourself, that you are able to do so both emotionally and financially. it's a great thing to, you know, work hard and build yourself up and ultimately attract what it is that you reflect, you know. There are a lot of people you'll see on Twitter, for example, who will say, you know what, yeah, I will only accept a guy who offers me like a £50,000 a head or £100,000 a head, but, you know, they still, you know, as
those
someone
me
tweeted,
like
have an
so,
Oyster
you know,
card,
you know,
or,
for
you know,
العين
don't have a
sugar, I
job.
don't need £50,000 a head. So, you know, for العين sugar, one year
Honestly,
£50,000
exactly. I feel like you should only have the, you should only ask for what it is that you can, you know, give or what you represent. You know, know your place.
You know your value.
As awful as that sounds, you know your value. You are all valuable people. Honestly, girls, guys, everybody, you are all valuable human beings. Just don't be the kind of person who comes on Twitter talking about hypothetical situations, okay? But yeah, teach yourself to be both financially and emotionally independent, not just one or the other, but both. And you know, your parents, because of a civil war, most people's parents left after a civil war, and they want the best for you, okay? I know there are a lot of people who got married very young, and marriage worked for them very well, and you know, stayed together for a very long time. But there are also a lot of people who place a lot of emphasis on, you know, partnering up with somebody because they feel like success lies in that. But true success lies in teaching yourself, you know, disciplining yourself, getting to where you are having your own goals that are separate from every other entity that lives on this earth. Yeah, and you know, focusing on balancing your deen, balancing your dunya, and you know, then progressing onto marriage or other things. You know, it's meant to complement you, it's not meant to be, you know, a make or break. You know, it's not all or nothing. It's not like an action potential. Like, it's meant to complement who you are as a person. So you have to already be a you know, credible individual.
Yasmiin, you know, as much as we can talk here for like 24 hours, you know, is there
one thing?
is there one thing that you'd like to say, you know, to any Somali youth out there, or any youth in general, you know, one advice you'd give them?
I'd say believe in yourself. It's ultimately your belief in yourself that will be able to take you the furthest. Believe in yourself and always be kind to people around you. I genuinely believe that there is no such thing as too kind. If you know somebody who you could help in some way, help them, and teach yourself to not always need to be appreciated or to receive praise for what you do. Help people, always be kind, and above all, always believe in yourself, inshallah.
وهجاك داوديال انت سين حلقة نجونا كسوك بجبينيا ما هتقاره بحنا علينا ياسمين يوسف جراد عمر أو قبض وكهرة سو أيك لقى قالت برنامج كعوة انت هستن يس أرج مقال ذنبه هدوء برالك نقضة وحد ما انتي ذيك كتجنا سذا ينبت قليو والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.